Good afternoon, good to see you all. Thank you so much for having me. I would like to start by saying thank you to my amazing team who have autonomously automated a glass of water for me because they saw that I was running low and they've got me another one. So look, the two things that I will warn you about is when I do events like this, firstly, I never stick to a script, so I'm sorry. And secondly, I typically run over. So I'll try to avoid those today. What we're going to try and do is walk you through where we as Microsoft see automation going. And quite openly, we have really ambitious views around where we are today, where we're going to go next, and how we can help you advance whatever your ambitions are in that space. And there's some really compelling arguments around where our platforms and C2 can start to drive some real value and some organisational change in that space. With, I guess, a bit of a summary, right? Kind of what are we used to talking about within automation? Where has automation come from and where is it going? And essentially, we've been through three eras. I would argue we're about to hit a fourth, but if we look back originally, automation was something that was embedded in apps. It was macros in Excel, or it was VBA, or it was something really nasty that you needed to be very clever and technical to understand. I'd argue in some cases that's still the case now through some of the providers, but anyway, I see some nods, which is good. We then move into, let's say, kind of 2014, 2015, we start to see UI-based automation, task-based automation bubbling up. So Blue Prism, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, really strong, solid platforms at what they do. And I will stress that, they're good at what they do. What we're moving into now is something that is more cloud-based, so something that's API-centric. So less about driving a UI, more about what do I want to do and how do I do it, and how do I do that programmatically at an API level. So not spin up a virtual machine that's hosted and go and click through some screens, connect natively to the applications that I want to drive and update them. And that's really good, and it's frankly way better than RPA if you can do it. And we typically describe RPA as being like last mile automation, where you can do automation at scale and do it through API level integration. You can have a much better, more scalable outcome. But not every app that you have is going to support that. Some of them are going to be legacy UI-based automations that you're going to need those providers for. Now, the challenge with the way that cloud-based automation works is you need to be deterministic. You need to say what you want. You need to be very specific. When this thing happens, go over here and do that. And if it isn't this, then do that. And you end up with pretty complex if then else type statements as you scamper through whatever you want your process to be. That's kind of where we are now. Now, we've got pretty good at that, and I'll show you a little bit of that today. But we're moving way beyond that into the future. So the generative AI components that Eric was talking about is going to foundationally change how we go about describing a problem and automating to a solution. And the speed at which that is coming is frankly terrifying. Like, we are struggling internally to keep up with it. Every week, again, I see nods, this is good. Every week there is new stuff coming out. The pace of change is astonishing. Now that means we need to be aware of it, but we also need to be open-minded around how do we apply it? How do we make sure as an organisation we're ready for it? Because no one wants to throw the switch on that overnight. We need to think really carefully around where can we leverage the benefits of this new tooling, and how can we do it in a way that's going to drive value ultimately? So I think when we talk about, and interesting listening to Eric talk around kind of best of breed automation, and I think in the case of the C2 offering, absolutely right. I think you're in a great place where you can take an orchestration layer, you can pull together a number of different providers, and you can have a very seamless experience. But for a lot of other people, that's not the case. You end up with a very disparate landscape of disconnected solutions that do not play nicely together. This is expensive, folks, right? This costs a lot of money to run, and it's really hard to maintain, and you end up with a team of very skilled, very expensive people who need great technical depth, a whole range of different solutions, and then they spend around about 80% of their time keeping those automations breathing. Not building new ones, just keeping the stuff that exists running today. So our view is that there needs to be a better way of doing that. There's got to be a more effective, frankly cheaper, a more efficient way of delivering that kind of process change that you're looking for. And analysts agree. I mean, this is a McKinsey report. They did it in collaboration with PwC. Same from Forrester, same from Gartner. The volume of business value that's sitting on the table from automation is staggering. So around about 60% of executives believe their processes are too complex. That wasn't necessarily the language used in the study, but too complex is what they landed on when they came to publish it. There's in excess of $2 trillion worth of savings that can be found by the end of next calendar year. That's like 12 months. That's a staggering amount of potential that exists within all of our businesses to automate and to drive value. And even today, around about half of all of the digital work that's undertaken can be fully automated using the pretty standard tools that we all have available to us today. That's not even thinking about generative AI. So we've started to talk quite extensively within Microsoft what we call a new automation mindset. Starting to think a little bit differently around how we approach the concept of automation. And there's lots of different vocabularies, right? You'll hear hyper-automation used, digital automation, intelligent automation. I don't really like any of them. Automation is just good enough for me, right? It's about taking a process, it's about improving it, it's about transforming it. So what we tend to think through is 3 different mindset changes. And this is what we're actively talking to our customers about today. The first of those is a process mindset. So stop thinking task-based. Stop thinking about, oh, this finance system's horrible to use and really clunky and on-prem. I've got an invoice comes in, and we'll talk about invoices a little later, but I need to then do something very specific with this task. So I need a bot to go and do it for me. We'd encourage you to think really horizontally about those processes. Actually, as an organisation, what do you need to do end to end? Where does your process start? Where does it finish? What are the touch points all the way along it? And to what extent can we drive automation from the beginning all the way through to the end? Because ultimately that's where savings really live. That's where efficiency lives. And we've seen it within Microsoft ourselves. We've grown within our finance team, for instance. You might have noticed people talk about Microsoft more than they did maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Our revenue's gone up 300%. Our operational costs to drive that revenue have gone up 11%. The reason we were able to manage that additional throughput of volume was automation and specifically Power Platform. We got rid of an entire BPO outsourcing rig because we could run everything through a fully automated cloud platform and drive that additional revenue and business. The next is scale. And when I talk about scale, I mean, how do we unlock the value that sits within the SMEs within your organisations who understand the processes they do today, who know where the tripwires are, who know where the blockers are. We're going to talk about process mining, I think, between both of us at some point today. But the people that really can help drive that efficiency, drive that improvement, are the ones who very rarely have any access to automation. They might be part of an automated process at some point, but they very rarely have any opportunity to automate things themselves, to drive their own personal productivity, to create something that's useful for their team, for their department, and how do we scale that up if it is useful for the team or for the department. So it's about accessibility. It's about making automation available to everyone. And we'll show you a little bit about how we can do that. And then lastly is agentic, and Eric touched on it. It's what everyone is talking about right now. Autonomous agents are everywhere. We are in an arms race to get this out first, right? Let's face it. You'll have heard from Google, you'll have heard from Meta, you'll have heard from AWS. Everyone is trying to talk about how they can drive autonomous agents through your businesses. And the reason for that is because they are truly transformational. What we can do on an autonomous standpoint is unlike anything we've seen before in this space. We'll show you some examples of that, but absolutely, this is going to change how automation works, and it's going to change it quicker than any of us think. Our agentic capability went live in preview 2 weeks ago, so you can go and play with it now. You can build anything you want. It's absolutely awesome. It works. We will go into availability generally in May of next year. Before it even hits availability, there's more stuff coming. We've got a big event in March. There'll be more announcements in March around what's coming within that space as well. So it's an area of incredible change, astonishing excitement. I love this stuff. I know I need to get out more, but it's amazing in terms of what it offers our businesses. So thinking about those different mindsets, I guess the obvious thing for Microsoft is where do we sit across them? And we can touch every one of those. And we'll talk to you a little bit about why. But when we think about processes, we've got full process mining. I know Eric and the team are going to talk to you about that a little bit later. So where are your bottlenecks? How does the process work? How can we make it more efficient? How can we use AI to suggest automation right out the box that's going to save you money on day one? The next is how we think about scale. How do we democratize the availability of automation to everyone? We're going to show you a little bit later in a demo how you can use natural language to create a complex automation that would typically take a skilled technical team to go out and build. So we'll show you that today. Nile and Amrit are going to keep everything crossed for me, and I'm absolutely confident that it will work perfectly. And then lastly, the agentic piece. So we've got what we call Copilot Studio that sits on top of our entire agent capability that allows you to go and build anything you want and plug it into nearly 1,500 other existing systems, including C2. And if one of those systems doesn't exist, if the system you want to connect in that 1,500 list isn't there, you can go and build your own connector. So you can automate full generative AI capability straight into your line of business systems. And again, to Eric's point, do that in a way that's secure and governed and compliant from day one. Full visibility across everything that you're doing. So look, there's a couple of summary statements before I get to the fun stuff. And I think principally it's about switching from tactical to strategic. So less about tasks, more about process, end to end. Where can we optimize? Where can we transform? Where can we improve? And that is very different to the way, quite frankly, a bot running on a hosted virtual machine works. So we've got customers who, and I'm not exaggerating, kicking our door down to talk to us about cloud type optimization because they've got traditional RPA bots sitting watching a mailbox. So they're paying for the infrastructure costs of a hosted virtual machine and a bot that's running on it that's just going to go and look and wait for an email to arrive. We can do that with an API. It's easy. I can do that this afternoon. That takes no time at all. That's out of the box stuff. So we have very, very different ways around how we look to change and tackle these problems. Best in class to best in suite, and I do think this is relevant, right? So a lot of people thinking about that complex technology landscape, that comes about because of an obsession on, I'm going to buy the best this and the best that, and it doesn't matter if they don't talk to each other. Actually, it does matter. It makes a big difference because things get more expensive for you. C2 can help with that. We can have an amazing orchestration layer that can help plug and bridge the gaps between these tools. But integration between your automation tools is important, and it does make your life easier. It makes it more seamless. And then lastly, moving from deterministic to dynamic. And what I mean by that is that kind of if, then, else type structure that we need to think about with automation. If I get an email and it's got an invoice and it's from this person and it's about a PO that I can find, then go and do that. You don't need to do any of that anymore. You just describe what you want the agent to do, and it will figure out, using whatever knowledge you give it, operating procedures, policies, histories of automations that have already run, it goes and figures out what it needs to do. And we've got 3 customers that are doing that today that we'll talk about, and they're saving significant money before we've even gone live with agents. So this stuff is very, very cool. So look, there are essentially, Eric touched on some of the different trends, some of the different kind of buzzwords. I'm very happy the bingo's been met, actually, around the areas of change that we're seeing. What keeps coming up? What do we hear about? What, quite openly, are we centering our R&D budget and our engineering efforts around? And that's specifically around these 3 areas. So a unified platform that includes automation. It's about multimodal Gen AI. I was hoping someone would have multimodal on a bingo card, but I doubt it somehow. And then next Gen AI, so what we do with Gen AI and agents. I'm going to go through these really quickly one at a time. Courtney, how am I on time? Okay. I'm okay?
Well, you know, you're good.
Okay, all right. I don't want you getting cross with me. Right, first one is this unified platform. So this is the Power Platform, essentially, but it's only one bit of it. We'll talk to you, if you want to kind of come and see me, come and see my amazing team later, we'll talk to you about the breadth of that platform. But within this slide, we're just talking about the automation capabilities. So we can discover where your bottlenecks are with process mining, we can automate, and within that automation, we've got full UI-based automation. If you want a traditional RPA offering, we can do that out of the box. We can even automatically spin up all the VMs you need to run it, and then we can shut them down. That whole thing is managed for you. We can do cloud-based API level automation. We'll show you a little bit of that in the demo. We can do full-on intelligent document processing and management, including ingestion, classification, routing. We can plug that into 1,600 different AI models. You can choose. You don't have to use OpenAI's model. You can use any model you want. We can deploy that at source, straight out of Azure for you. And then lastly, we've got Copilot connectors running. Today, I think we're at 1,440. We'll be at 1,500 by Christmas. So that keeps growing. Whatever you want to plug into, if it's Salesforce, if it's Genesis, if it's AWS, if it's Meta, doesn't matter, we will plug into it for you. And if we don't release one, you can go and build your own. So that's essentially how we think about that broad platform. The point I'd add to that is every single component of that platform, every piece of data, every row, every table, every action, everything is secured and governed and fully compliant based upon your own policies, not ours. You can decide what you want to connect to, what you want to allow, who can do it, when they can do it. Every condition that you want to map out, we can map that out. The European Commission just took on 45,000 users. As soon as anyone wants to write an automation, they click a button to join it, they provision their own developer environment, all the data loss protection policies are applied, and then it scales up and up and up through a staggered environment policy. There is absolute 100% control on day one of every single bit of data across your organisation.
Jon,
Yeah.
is it typical someone taking pictures? Can we share the slides?
Yeah, we can share these. Yeah. Yeah, I can, I'll send you the deck and the guys can share it separately. The next is multimodal, right? So for those that aren't as geeky as me, multimodal is essentially different forms of input. So when we think about generative AI, it's typically text. It's people like me writing songs about my dog in the style of the Beatles or something like that, which is kind of the sad thing that I like to do, that we all did. When it came out, everyone went nuts for it, right? But that was just text. Now it's about taking different inputs, specifically your own applications. So we have a model that understands the UI that your applications are hosting through RPA. Where does the button sit? What does it do? How does it work? When that UI changes, SAP is a common one. SAP love to move buttons around. They do it pretty much every update. If you've got a traditional bot plugged into SAP, you need to go and you need to change it because your automation is going to break because the UI isn't where the bot expects it to be. That doesn't matter anymore because we can self-heal the automation because the model understands what button it needs to click and it knows it's somewhere else on the screen. You then get an approval process. So do you want to automatically click the button or do you want someone to check that the change that the AI has made to your automation is correct? All of these things are available. Now I have got a video for this. I don't like videos, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to use it because I think it's really cool. It shows you how we can go about using Copilot on a desktop to record an automation for you. So we did this for a major bank. It will become obvious as you go through here who the bank is, but this has been a publicly shared video, so it's not a particular secret. But just take a look at this video and hopefully you'll see what I mean around some of the AI-based recording that we have.
With Power Automate, the bank can build an automation for this manual process. But they're not going to be doing it the same way they've been doing so in the past. They're going to be using the new and exciting ability to record with Copilot, with which they can build RPA automations by simply showing and telling. Okay, let me show you. Now coming up, I'll be sharing my screen and speaking to Copilot. And Copilot will be listening. Now this is not just for show. This is real time. Okay, let's do it. First, I navigate to my Edge browser. Then I navigate to this site, and I click on this Excel button to download the most recent survey. Once it's downloaded, I open the file in Excel. Next, I navigate to this internal site. I click on Surveys, and then I upload new survey data. And now I want to copy over all the data from this Excel file into this tool. I want to copy over the data row by row, and after each row, I click Submit. And that's it. Now, the recording is being analyzed. But let me tell you what's actually happening behind the scenes. We're leveraging GPT-4o to convert this recording into an automation. And there's 3 essential components to do this. The first, the video recording. The video recording will be used by the model to understand what I want the automation to do. Next, the voice instructions. As you can see, as I was speaking, my voice was being transcribed, and this transcription would be used by the model to provide the logic such as loops and conditionals in the flow. And then finally, the UI elements. Copilot actually understands the structure of my screen, the structure of the applications I'm using, so that the flow can refer to specific UI elements, such as the form fields in this site. Okay, this analysis may take just a few minutes, but let's have a look at what a flow built by Copilot would look like. Isn't this incredible? From just a recording, Copilot built this suggested flow. And I'd like to highlight two things that Copilot did very well. You can see here that Copilot automatically identified that I need a for loop in this automation because I described that I wanted to copy over the data from Excel row by row. If we also look here, we can see that Copilot accurately mapped the columns from the Excel spreadsheet to the fields in the form in the internal analytics tool. Isn't this awesome? The moment of truth. Let's see how this automation performs. Let's give it a run. The automation is now running, and I'm stepping out from behind the computer. My hands are in the air so you can see that I'm clearly not controlling anything, and the automation is performing exactly as demonstrated. This allows the bank to process customer feedback much faster.
That was a demo we did at the Power Platform conference in Vegas a couple of months ago, and that demo was done live, as you saw it, in front of 6,500 people. I mean, that's the level of confidence we have in the capability that this stuff will work. Now, to Eric's point, this isn't about getting it 100% right straight away, because that is unrealistic. And I'm not going to stand here and say that everything's going to work perfectly. But it is about getting you sort of 60, 70, 80, 90% of the way there. So you can then go and tweak what's there. It's about accelerating. It's not about replacing people. It's about getting more out of the people you have rather than just eliminating heads. And that's a really important thing, right? We can make you more efficient. You can do more with less. There isn't an automation team anywhere that doesn't have a backlog, that doesn't have people saying, I need this and I need it now, or this is broken, or fix it. This helps those teams do more with less technical skills. I've also managed to mix the clickers up, which was the one thing I was told not to do. So hopefully this button will work. Oh, it did work, I got it right. So the next is agents. Before I get to the demo, I did just want to touch on agents because it's, as I say, it's something that everyone is really excited about right now. You can go and play with this. This is in preview. You can go and mess around with autonomous agents yourself. They are astonishingly powerful. Now, all you need to do is describe what you want the agent to do. Do that fully in natural language. You have an input. This is what I'm waiting to happen. And you can have multiple triggers for that as well. So it doesn't just have to be an email. It could be a web chat. It could be an update on a system. It could be anything you want. You then describe what you want the automation to deliver and how you want it to deliver. And you can plug policy documents into it and product catalogs and all kinds of cool stuff. But you don't need to write a single line of code, and you don't need to do these deterministic if-then-else type statements. All of it is done with a generative orchestrator that figures out what's needed and is fully transparent in terms of the steps. It will learn, it will improve, and if it hits a point where it's not sure, it asks for help. It doesn't just guess. So we've been very, very careful. I'll be totally honest with you, we are not the first out the gate with this. There are other vendors that have been launching agents a few months earlier than us. The reason we have done this very, very carefully is because back to that structure and compliance and control piece. If we're going to say to our customers, autonomous agents are ready for your data, we've got to be really confident that they are. So that's why our preview period is running till May. Go away, test it, go play with it, let us know, right? What works, what doesn't, because we've got an army of engineers waiting to fix it. It's no secret that our investment in this space is huge. We will make this work, and it is going to make significant change as early as the summer for people that are deploying it. So if we talk about people that are deploying it, we do have some customers who are live. So one of those is Pets at Home. You may have heard tell of this in the market. It's been in a lot of our press and our announcements. Turns out pets at home have a massive fraud problem. People that go and buy products from Pets at Home, they tend to send in images of damaged products multiple times and try and get a lot more money in refunds than perhaps they should. They had a significant problem with this. Now, they went live with an agent 3-4 months ago, maybe a little more actually, that takes every single return refund request. They're asked to submit images, by the way, of the damage. It then compares those images to other images. It matches whether or not we've seen that image before. It matches the customer. It basically goes through every fraud identification and elimination step and stage that humans went through, but it does it all automatically. It does it all autonomously. And so far, their estimations conservatively are just from that single fraud process, they're going to save $1 million a year. They're already exploring many more use cases for agents because they've seen very, very rapidly how they can drive value out of it. The next is McKinsey. So McKinsey, like super complex consulting company. If you want to run a project with McKinsey, there's a project initiation phase that happens, right? So someone emails in, says what they want, someone reads the email, they go and figure out, well, where's this person based? What's the project about? Which of our partners has got the right skills and experience in the right location with capacity and resources to deliver that project? That used to take days, and when I say days, around about 20 days, from the receipt of the email through to the allocation of the email and the project to the partner for the initiation document. That now happens in 2 days, because when that email lands, a generative agent reads it, understands it, figures out who the most appropriate partners, locations, history, resource allocation, all of that cool stuff. That's done automatically and transparently, and then is allocated off to the most appropriate partner to deliver. So from 20 days down to 2. It means that they are actioning leads way faster than they were before. This isn't just about efficiency. Some of it is about kind of competitive advantage. If you can get back to people that are coming to you with leads earlier, you're going to win more business. And then lastly is Thomson. So Thomson Reuters are using, again, an agent for legal due diligence. Right, let's talk about a demo. To Eric's point, we are going to do a live demo today. Let's start with kind of a little bit of background. Anita. So Anita works in an automation team, right? She's very skilled. She loves what she does. She's been using Power Platform. She's got good skills in it. She really likes where we're going with machine learning. She likes what we're doing around agentic spaces. But the way it works today, or has traditionally worked, is building these automations and these flows takes time. You know, it takes time to figure it out. Deterministic again. We need to figure out what we need to do and define the process. But she's got a request that's come in from finance. Finance are overwhelmed with invoice reconciliation. So invoices come into mailboxes, maybe they don't quite match POs, or the discount variance isn't quite what we expect it to be. Massive volumes of manual work is undertaken in order to match these invoices that come in digitally into the finance system. So what we're going to see with Anita is she's going to create this automation using a prompt and nothing other than a prompt. She's then going to review a template that Copilot is going to create for her, and then she's going to test and publish it. So let's see how we get on. This is Power Automate. So what you're looking at right here is the Power Automation screen that you can use to go ahead and build the automations that you have. So at the top, all we're being asked to do is describe the automation that we want. So we have recorded this typing, so because one thing I cannot do is talk and type at the same time, it's just impossible. But effectively, what we're going into this prompt to say is go and build me an automation that will take a file, an invoice file, as an input. It's then going to use AI to read the invoice and extract key information from it. We're not saying it's this row or this field or this information. We're saying, based on your understanding, go and get the key information that I need. Once you've done that, then go over, talk to C2, via the C2 connector into Power Automate, create a queue item with the extracted data. So what we can then do is use that C2 queue item to kick off any other automation you've got in any other platform that's plugged into C2. We can also use this to run everything end to end, but this is very much around how do we help you collaboratively think about, I've got existing automation, maybe I want to start to introduce platform Power Automate into this landscape. We can do that in parallel via the C2 platform with everything you have today. This doesn't have to be big bang, doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can move over incrementally using that orchestration layer. So I've written out my prompt. That's going to go off to the model. Copilot's going to take all the information we've given it, very simple prompt, and it is going to build us out a template. It's going to say, this is what I think you mean based on that prompt. So that comes back relatively quickly, and what we can see is that it said, well, the first thing we're going to need is a trigger. So in this case, it's assuming we're going to hit a button to run that trigger. For the purposes of the demo, we're going to leave it at a button, but that could be anything else. That could be when an email arrives. It could be when a back office system updates. It could be anything you want it to be. And then when we're thinking about autonomous agents, it can be multiple triggers. It doesn't have to be just one. So as soon as that trigger happens, in this case, when that button's pressed, it's going to go and do some stuff, right? And the stuff it's going to do initially is go and extract that information from the invoice. It's going to do that using something called AI Builder. So this is a tool that we have within the platform that enables you to use your own AI modeling, but do it super quick. So back in the day, it would cost you $1 million and 6 months of POC to build an AI model to extract invoice data. You now just need like 20. Just feed that model 20 invoices. It will figure out where the key information is, what kind of language you use, how you want it to work. Once you've trained that model with those 20 invoices, you're good to go. You can run it across all these automations as many times as you want. Once it's extracted the information from the invoice, it's then going to go and pass a response. So it's going to pull the data out of the invoice as a JSON payload, and then it's going to pass it into C2. So we're going to see that then land in the C2 queue. So that's what we're going to get it to do. Keep everything crossed, folks. What we'll see in just a moment as this spins up is we'll see the step-by-step automation that Copilot's built. So again, within here, we can see all the steps that we're going through. If I want to change it, if I wanted to go update it, add an extra conditional loop, change how that behaves, I can do that through clicking in any of these steps, or I can use Copilot again to go and update it and change it. And just to show that this is real, what I'm going to do, and when we go into the create the queue item, we're going to give it a name when it hits C2. So let's just call this Thursday. So I can then save that automation. And then we can hit test. So I'm going to manually trigger it, and I'm going to give it an invoice. That's the invoice we're going to feed it. So very simple, very straightforward, but no specifics around how to go ahead and extract it. I'm going to choose that invoice, which is just called sample. And we're going to run that flow. So in the background, what's now happening is that invoice is being taken in by Power Automate. It's being reviewed and ingested by the AI model. All of that data is extracted, all of that key information that we need to go and update our finance system to drive the automation out of C2, all of that's being pulled out. And then what we can then do is check how it's running. So we can see that immediately clicked on, took 19 seconds to extract the information, 3 seconds to pass it, and then less than 1 second to pass it into the C2 queue. And then if we go into C2, and it was going so well, Nilo. Log in. We got timed out, look at that. That's because I talked too long. Give that a refresh. We'll then see that the information we need has then landed in that queue item. What queue am I going through? MS Demo. So in that queue item, we can then see the Thursday invoice that we've extracted with AI, that we've passed, that we've done entirely using natural language, no code, no specific automation skills, is now sitting in the C2 queue, ready to be picked up by whatever bot you want then to go and do something with it. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of how easy it is to build this stuff out. Back to that scale piece, right? How do we enable this for our teams to go and do these automations quicker, faster, more powerfully? So look, I'm going to rattle through these really fast because I'm sure everyone wants a coffee, including me. But hopefully what you've seen is this is a low barrier to entry, right? Anyone can do this with a little bit of enablement. You can figure out, you can decide who gets to do what, when they get to do it, how that automation works. And you can do this faster than you would traditionally. You can do more with the skilled teams that you have. You can grow those teams far quicker using your subject matter experts from across the business. And look, we've talked about process automation today. There's a lot more in the platform than just this. Come and see the team. We've got some demos running. We can put an application in front of this. We can put a UI layer on top of your existing processes. We can build you conversational bots. We can expose transactions, process data out to self-service on the web. This is an end-to-end business process transformation platform. And just to re-hammer the point, when we think about how we change, how we consider this technology differently, it is about changing our mindset. It's about thinking differently around the tooling that is now available to us all with the rise of generative AI. So I would urge you to kind of go and investigate, come and have a chat with us. We've got some more cool demos we can show you in the breaks. And if you've got any questions, please do shout.
Let's see one. I think we promise.